Alex Music, and guess what? Welcome back to my humble opinion, and this is my religious life video blog. And get ready to take a look at Mark chapter 8 verses. You guessed it. Let's see. Uh, and we'll get ready to take a look at this one. It's gonna be um, Mark chapter 27 verses 38 says Peter's declaration about Jesus. You know what? It went on and on. You know what I'm saying? Like this one. So, so here's your worst nightmare to you about this one. It's going to be Peter's declaration about Jesus. Now, it's on verse 27 says, Jesus went on with his disciples to the villages of Caesarea Philippi. And on the way, he asked his disciples, said, "Who do you say that I am?" And they answered him, "John the Baptist, and the others, Elijah." Whoa, yes. Now, because everything else can be civilized about this one. And still others, one of the prophets. He asked him, "But who do you say that I am?" Peter answered him, "You are the Messiah." And he is stern ordered them not to tell anyone about him. And that is why he gave his you know who teaching. Then he began to teach them that the Son of Man must undergo great suffering, will be rejected by the elders, chief priests, and the scribes, and be killed. After 3 days he rise again. He said all this quietly, and Peter took him aside and began to rebuke him. But turning away and looked at its disciples, and he rebuked Peter and said, "Get behind me, Satan, for you are setting your mind not on divine things, but on human things." And he called the crowd with his disciples and said to them, If any want to become my followers, let them deny themselves and take up their cross and follow me. For those who want to save their life will lose it, and those who lose their life for my sake and for the sake of the gospel will save it. And it goes on and on. Now, if you ask this question, LH Music, why in the world you always says this, "Who do you say that I am?" Well, you ask me about this, and I have no clue whatsoever. And you don't want to know about who do we say that we are. Because nobody says who we are is what we are. So, but this is going to be very important on Mark chapter 8. And that is why it has something to do with this Mark thing. Because it has, everything else live in a confrontation. Because Peter tried to confess on being asked by Jesus, and that's why he knows that Jesus is the Christ. And that's why I heard Father Tony's sermon on my at my church this morning about this confession. It says, "Who do you say that I am? I am the Christ." Now, and this is why has something to do with the confession and the cross. So that is all we can say. Because others have guessed that Jesus is John the Baptist or Elijah or a prophet. And once again, Jesus tried to warn this time that this has to be told by anyone. And that is why his hour for the final opposition, and the death has not yet to come. But the next verse has just showed you about this one. Father Jason's trying to poke me like that. Anyways, and that's why it killed. Jesus has been killed at teaching the sufferings and been rejected and be killed and rise again. And you know what that means, rebuked him. And, is himself rebuked strongly by Jesus to try to remind him that the truth comes out. And it comes from God, not from man. And that's why Peter is so wrong about the cross. Just having so right about the Christ. And finally, what is the commitment has something to do with it? I'll tell you what the commitment is. It's been, taking your cross and follow me. And that's why Jesus tells each disciples try to deny himself and take up his own cross and follow him. And those who prepare to lose their lives will lose it. And show the way that their soul has been saved. And that one day they will be owned by Jesus in glory. And if it were possible to gain in the whole world, then guess what? Anyone doing so at the cost of losing his own soul will be an eternal loser. And the moral of my religious life video blog story of this 17th Sunday of Pentecost is this. Because like I said, because ancient authorities could be losing their life for the sake of the gospel. And guess what? The Son of Man will be also ashamed when he comes in the glory of his Father with the holy angels. So, learn it. Just do it. Use your own head. Learning it, and everything's gonna be fine. Believe me, I'll tell you that Mark's gospel, it should be very important about who do we say that we are. And of course, everything else, taking your cross and follow them, and because everyone loses their life for my sake, and everything else will save it for the gospel. That's all I can say. Anyways, that's my religious life video blog story, and guess what? I'm sticking to it. See you next Sunday.